Welcome back to the Goal Line Stand. It has been a while, but I am really excited to get back into this video. If you are new here, please make sure to follow our Instagram. It is linked in the description of the YouTube video. Now, today we are talking about my personal picks of coaches that are on the hot seat for the 2022 college football season. Now, I have 5 coaches picked out with one guy at the very end that I think will shock a couple of people. Now, to start it off, here are some criteria. I'm ranking them out of 10 on how likely they are at the end of the season to be fired. And I'm just going and looking back at their records from the past year, the past couple years, and, kind of giving my 2 cents on why I think that they could be fired. Now, to start it off, we have a guy who's been at his current coaching position since 2011. Now, David Shaw, the head coach of the Stanford Cardinal, is an incredible coach. He's been there, like I said, since 2011, and, he's earned the trust of that institution. It's a great school in Palo Alto, it's on the coast, it's a great school. David Shaw has learned to recruit there. He's learned to build up that program, obviously, making Rose Bowl appearances and, bringing up those insanely good athletes. We look at guys like Christian McCaffrey, and I know it wasn't under his reign, but the Andrew Luck he took right over for Jim Harbaugh when Jim Harbaugh made a step up into the league. Now, the reason why I think David Shaw could be replaced at the end of this year is because last season his record was 4-8. And it's kind of been a downward spiral for the Cardinal in the past couple of years. There's been a new rising contender in the Pac-12 being the Utah Utes, and Oregon has just continued to stay up at the top, where Stanford used to be at the top but is going down. Now, I think this is a big deal for the Stanford athletic department because they pride themselves on being the top of the top. Obviously, last year, the 2021 women's basketball national champions. If an athletic program like Stanford and an institution like Stanford wants to move on from David Shaw, I would not be surprised at the end of this year. Therefore, I would say that out of 10, the likeliness that David Shaw would be fired is a 7 out of 10. Next up, we have Herm Edwards. Now, Herm Edwards, obviously longtime coach. You hear a lot of stories about him being a really great guy, really great coach. I don't doubt that in the slightest. He's just one of those personalities. He knows what he's talking about. In the past 2 seasons, Herm Edwards has gone 10-7, which isn't bad for the Arizona State program, but it's just not. It's not what they want. They want to be competing, and they just really haven't been doing that. Now, one aspect that I think Herm Edwards has kind of dropped the ball in is the transfer portal. Now, you see a lot of the old coaches go and make moves in the transfer portal, bringing them in to go and coach them up, That's not just college football. That's across all of college sports. Herm Edwards is one of the coaches that once he got that job, everybody viewed him to be a threat in the transfer portal. And he's losing guys in the transfer portal. We look at their best quarterback, probably in the past 5 years, they lose him to LSU and Jaden Daniels. We look at a lot of the guys that they bring in not see any field time, and coaches start to leave. I think that's a problem for Herm Edwards, and the worst part about this all is the NCAA probe that recently just got brought to light about them recruiting during the dead period in 2020 during quarantine. Now, I think Herm Edwards will be out of a job at the end of this year. I think I would grade that a 9 out of 10 simply because of the fact that the NCAA is already on his case and he hasn't really shown the Herm Edwards that we know. Next up is Scott Frost. Scott Frost, longtime UCF coach and longtime Nebraska head coach. He's been at Nebraska for 4 years now, going into his 5th season, which actually sounds kind of crazy because we all remember the UCF national champions 13-0, even though they were never really national champions. Scott Frost brought that team up. And, he got the chance to go back to his alma mater, which is every coach's dream. You can go back to your alma mater and pick up right where you left off. Now, Scott Frost has had a lot of solid teams, but the results just haven't been there. This past year, they were the most competitive that they've ever been, but only went 3-9. Now, that team played a lot of very, very, very tough teams from the likes of Ohio State, Oklahoma, and plenty others. Nebraska's not a team that you want to mess with, but also they're a team that needs improvement. They're a long way out of making a bowl game, making a push to go into the postseason. And, I think, Scott Frost is at the head of that because the head coach always takes the hit from all of that backlash. And I think Scott Frost, while he might be a great coach, I think he could be out of a job. But the reason why I'm going to grade this a 6 out of 10 is because he just signed that new contract. For the number 4 slot, I have Bryan Harsin. Bryan Harsin, the Auburn head coach, has only been there 1 year. But the recent NCAA investigation and allegations brought against him leads me to put him on this list. I think that Auburn had a chance to move on from him and decided not to. I think that it's wise for them to give him 1 more year. Even though it's his first year, Auburn has a lot of history. Auburn wants to beat Alabama every single year and could have done it this past year. And I think Bryan Harsin not delivering weekly is definitely not something that you want if you are an athletic director, if you're an institution like Auburn. Now, Auburn went 6-7 last year, and that's not good, especially after taking the reins from Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn, obviously great coach, won a national championship. I think Gus Malzahn, just the amazing things that he did with that program, having to take the reins from him and going 6-7 is not something that is acceptable if you are the Auburn Tigers. Also, they have lost the transfer portal. They brought a couple of young guys in, but they lost a lot of true leaders in Bo Nix, plenty of their secondary. I think that the Auburn Tigers put themselves in a disadvantage by hiring Bryan Harsin and then having that entire allegation and investigation go on right during the prime season of the transfer portal. I think that the Auburn Tigers have a chance to get better, but they're just very mediocre, which I don't think is acceptable to those people down in Alabama. So I would rate that around a 6 out of 10. Next up, rounding out the top 5 is Mike Norville. Now, this might be a little bit of a bold take, but Mike Norville, while he has only been there 2 years, he needs to do a lot of work, frankly, with that program. They lost to Jacksonville State, an FCS program. No disrespect to Jacksonville State, but a program with that much history, national championship history in the past 10 years, should not lose at home to Jacksonville State. It's just a large program similar to Auburn with a lot of history that has passionate fans, passionate fans that want to look forward. Now, when Mike Norville was first hired for the Florida State job from Memphis, I was excited for the future for the Seminoles. I thought that his recruiting could take the next step forward, and I think it has, but I also think it was a huge blow for the Florida State Seminoles to lose Travis Hunter, the number 1 ranked recruit in that class. I think him going to Deion Sanders and the Jackson State team is just absolutely incredible. Good win for Deion Sanders. Do I think it's going to happen every year? No, but I think that Mike Norville's job became a lot more difficult after that because of the people who started to decommit. Now, I would probably say that I would rate this around a 7 out of 10 that he could be out of a job this next year. I don't think he'll be out of college football if he does lose this job. Also, I could definitely see a bounce back year from the Seminoles. Good quarterback in A.J. Duffy coming in. Going to make some big moves. Obviously, he's from Florida, so he's used to that type of stuff. I think I've talked about it in previous videos. You never want to play in Florida early in the year. It's just terrible weather. I think A.J. Duffy could be that guy, and I think Mike Norville could have his job. But I'm still going to say 7 out of 10 because of the history of the Florida State Seminoles. And finally, the bonus pick. The one that I think could shock a lot of people. Now, I don't think that this guy will be out of a job at the end of 2022. But we look forward to the end of 2023 and the end of 2024. I do think that this guy could be out of the job considering the amount of pressure that he's being put under. And this guy is Jimbo Fisher, national championship winning coach with the Florida State Seminoles. Now at Texas A&M, has the number 1 ranked recruiting class essentially bought by the boosters. Now, I think this is something that needs to be taken into account because Jimbo Fisher, great coach, great recruiter, but when you have $13 million of somebody else's money on the line, they're going to expect results. And, they haven't really had that great of years. I mean, they've pulled off upsets. You look at the Alabama loss in College Station this past year, that upset by Texas A&M. I mean, absolutely incredible. But it's not consistent. They've lost to very, very bad teams. And I think that's not excusable this year, especially considering the caliber of players that they have coming in. I think that this could be a very, very big thing to look at if you are the boosters, if you are the entire university. How much am I paying this guy to go and lose and then have the boosters get mad? I don't think it really makes sense, and I think Jimbo Fisher could be out of a job. I don't think it'll be this year. I don't think it'll be next year, but we could be seeing 2024 an unemployed Jimbo Fisher. So now I would rank him as a 2 out of 10. If something goes wrong, they don't have any results in this year, I would say there's a 6 out of 10% chance, 6 out of 10 that he will be out of a job. That's where I'm ranking it. This has been my hot seat grades, and it was a fun episode. I'm happy to be back, and stay tuned to the Goal Line Stand for more videos.